let's recreate this graph using R. Okay, so first things first, if we want to recreate this chart in R, we need the data. Lucky for us, they have labeled every single bar on this chart. So we have every observation of the data. We might not have the underlying data, but we don't need that to recreate the chart. We just need the grouped data as it's shown here. So this is a case where we can easily just create the data in R with a few lines of code. So I've gone ahead and done that already. Using the Tibble package, am creating a data frame right here with 2 columns. The household group column, which is telling you if it's the bottom 10%, 10 to 20th percentile, and so on, all the way to the top 10%. And the other variable is estimated change. And again, I am just pulling these straight from the chart. So we see negative 3.9% here, and I am putting 0.039 here, negative 0.039 here. This is all we need here, and it will save this data frame as an R data file using this code. I just realized I copied this from another repo that I destroyed with poor Git hygiene, so I have transferred to a new repo. And I think I just have it in data, yeah. So, well, let's run it and see if it works. So that ran, and we have our D data element there. Save RDS, ran. Great. Now I should mention, I am doing this in positron here. I have been a longtime RStudio user, but I'm doing this in positron. I figured, why not? I've used positron a little bit before, but I've just been set in my ways using RStudio and, working on old projects that have been in place for years in RStudio. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to dive into positron. What I've seen about it is really cool, so I'm excited to give it a shot, but you might see a little bit of a learning curve as I work my way through this. I think the most useful thing about these videos is watching someone kind of do it live. So you see the mistakes they make, and you see how they adjust to those mistakes, or how they troubleshoot, how they fix them, rather than a polished, like, here's everything already written out, and, them just walking through it line by line. That's going to be my strategy here. Okay, so now we have our data. Next, let's think about how we can build this chart. So the first thing that I notice about this chart is it's really, at its core, it's just a bar chart. And if you're familiar with ggplot, you know that a bar chart, you can make that easily with geom column. So I am going to get started with that strategy, that I'm going to make this bar chart using geom column. Now, full disclosure, I've already done a test run. You can see my file over here where I have successfully recreated this chart. So this is not 100% new to me, but I'm still going to live code it again. I think this is a good happy medium between doing something just out of the blue, where it frankly might get a little boring, and you still get to see me walk through it, coding it, and running into issues and things like that. So create a new file, a new R file. Let's go ahead and save as, let's call it make the chart. Very original file names coming from me. And we're going to be using tidyverse. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, we technically already have our data read in here, but I like to set up files like this in a way that I don't have to run this other file first. Well, you know what? This might be easier. Oops. Didn't want a screenshot. Wanted to comment. All right, so let's comment that out. And that way, I can just say source make data.r. All right. So now when we run this, it is just running this file, which is just creating our data frame. And that's great. I was going to say, let's save our data file and then we could read it in when we're opening this file, but I feel like this is a little cleaner. Okay, so we have D here. How do I view this? Oh, there we go. So this is what D looks like, our data frame. Don't come at me about naming my data frame element D. I'm fried at the end of the day, so keep a name simple. So we have 2 columns here. And let's get charting. ggplot. Okay, so I know my strategy is gonna be to make geom column. So let's get started with the x-axis will be household group, and the y-axis will be estimated change. Oh, no, I hate that. Does it not do the thing that RStudio does? In RStudio, when you close the parentheses, it doesn't do that. It just moves the cursor over those parentheses. And I love that feature. Oh, that sucks. I gotta figure out. There's gotta be a way to make that happen. Let's just see what that does for us. Oops. Okay, so there we go. We got several issues here. First of all, the theme elements are all default ggplot with this background and the axis labels and the panel grid and all of that. But first, we have our x-axis is not in the correct order. So we need to make that a factor and put those in the correct order. So I think we can hop over to our make data file and handle that issue here. Let's just do a mutate household group equals factor household group levels equals blah blah blah. I wonder if anyone has a better way to do this sort of thing, because I just do it like this. Ooh, you know what would be better? You know what? Who cares? Okay, let's just keep it at that. And then boom, bada bing, bada boom, there's an error because I have too many commas. There we go. Save that file. Now let's run source again. Now let's try this again. There we go. So now our chart is, ordered correctly. Now let's hop back over to the chart we're trying to recreate. And the next thing I notice is the coloring. So let's see if we can get the coloring in there. The way that I like to do this is, well, there are a few ways. I have a plugin here, Colorzilla. You can pick a color from the page like this and do that. But in case you don't have that, let's do it a way that should work for everyone. Let's open the inspection panel. We can point at this and see exactly how they have it coded. So, let's see. call it chart colors. Oops. Actually, I'm going to make that the second one. And we'll take this one. All right, so now we have the chart colors, and we can say, oh no, my indenting is off. I don't have these settings up correctly either. That's annoying. Okay, so we'll say fill, right? Fill equals if else est change is greater than 0. Chart calls 1, else chart calls 2. All right, so using this, I'm saying if the estimated change variable for any observation is greater than 0, it'll be the first color. Oops, it should be the second color. Or if that's false, it'll be the first color. And the chart is giving me this. That's because ggplot is not taking in the literal values here. It's taking them as a factor, and then it's applying the default colors to that factor. So instead, what we need to say is scale fill identity. And when you use this, it's going to take the literal values you have supplied. Like that. Now that looks exactly like we want it to look in terms of the colors. Now the next thing that's really bugging me here is the plot grid. So let's use theme minimal, and that'll get rid of a good deal of it. And theme, there's different ways you could go about this. Actually, let's just do theme void. So the theme void is obviously going to get rid of everything, and then you can add it all back in as you like. Since we're really getting rid of a lot of stuff, there are no axis labels, there are no axis titles, there's no panel grid here, so we might as well just get rid of all of it. And now our strategy is going to be to add geoms for the text elements. So I see 2 geom text elements. There's the text element labeling the percentages, and there's the text element labeling these groupings. And so these labels here are replacing what would be the x-axis. So it's a more direct labeling. So let's start with the easier one. Aesthetic label equals est change. Oops. All right, so we're getting that, but we are going to use the scales package to say label percent, to use this function, and we want it at, so there's only 1 decimal point here, so we will just do 1 decimal point, like that. And now we need to adjust where these labels are appearing. I gotta figure out this. I forget what this is even called, where it, in RStudio, and I think a lot of IDEs, it will automatically adjust this for you. Linting. Yeah, I gotta fix my linting settings. Okay, to adjust where these labels appear, I think it's vjust. I think that's the aesthetic equals, and we're going to use the same strategy here. S_change is greater than 0. Let's call it 1, else -1. Actually, that's going to be too much. We got to say 0.1 because these are percentages. All right. There we go. All right, got there in the end. I think I might be too tired to be doing this, but let's keep on. All right. We will come back to the actual font and styling of the text. But let us just say we're going to use this same code for color. And then there, now we have the text labels also. Now let's get the category labels, the x-axis, so to speak. Geom text label equals, what was this called? Household group. And then say y equals, oops. And then another if else, s_change is greater than 0. Let's say it's 0.2 else, no, -2 else 0.2. And what I'm saying there is for the elements where the estimated change is higher than 0, so like these, we want the position of these labels to be -0.2. So that's going to be like right here is my goal. Oops. 0.02. 0.02. All right, so that's pretty close. A couple things we want to dial in here. Color equals, let's call it gray 50. Line height equals 0.9. All right, and we need to move these a little bit more. It's actually probably 0.3, 0.3. Now that's getting a little closer to what we have here. Now we have most of the chart elements. We have the colors, we have the labels here. Oh, we have this horizontal line. So let's add geom h line y intercept equals 0. All right, so we have that line. That's just a black line. That's how it looks. Great. All right, so now let's dial in the title and subtitle here. So I'm just going to copy this title. I'm going to throw my labs. Let's see how that looks. That's okay. We need to fix the font, but subtitle equals all right, so we have the title, subtitle. Now let's dial in the font. An organization like the New York Times, they're going to be using custom fonts, I think. So the best we can do is steal a font, or not steal a font, but take a font that's publicly available and close to the font that they're using. And I have already gone through some digging to figure out what that could be. And so I'm just going to peek over here. It's this Libra Franklin font, which I got off of Google Fonts, I believe. So again, I'm just stealing that from my test run so I don't waste a bunch of time. And let's add it here. Theme. Title equals element text. This is how we can actually, let's say text equals element text, family equals. All right, so that adjusted this font. It adjusted all the fonts. We want the title itself to be bold, so we will say title equals element text, face equals bold. Ugh. All right. And see, the subtitle is inheriting from title, so we need to say subtitle plain. There we go. Okay. So that's looking pretty similar to this. So next, I think we need to dial in this font size a little bit. Well, also we need to change the font. All right, so that's another thing you got to keep in mind with ggplot. When you edit the text here for the plot, it's not going to edit the geoms themselves. You have to designate it, I believe, in every one. Family equals family equals this linting. All right, and we got to make these a little smaller because they're kind of overpowering as they are. I forget what the size is here. Yeah, that's way too small. Like 3. Yeah, I think that's pretty close. Pretty close to what it looks like here. I might add a little bit, let's say 1. A little more space in the line height. Now that looks really close. All right, the last thing I want to add here is this caption. And I can tell you, since I've already tried to do this, this little dot here, this is like coded in their CSS, in their style, how this shows up to separate their source. So I am not going to, that's going to be an aspect that does not get fully captured here, but so it goes. Don't like that. Blue. This is what I like to do when I have a really long text that I don't want going that far. All right, whatever. Still getting used to positron. All right, so if we do that, what happens? Why didn't anything happen? Okay. I'm missing the close parentheses. All right, so again, it's bold and I don't want it bold. It's also not wrapping properly. So let's say string wrap. Let's call it 100. Okay, and then plot caption equals element text face equals plain h just equals 0. We want it on the left, not the right. And we can see that it spans the entire width of the plot. So the best way I know to do that is just to dial this string wrap in. All right, now we need to add a little margin in the top, bottom equals 10. All right, so when I did that, you can see that kind of clipped here. We can say chord clip equals off. And when you say that, if there's text that overflows the actual plot panel area, then it won't clip it. It will let it be printed like that. So I think we're pretty close. This is a different color. Oh, both the subtitle and the caption are different colors. I think those are like a gray 50-ish. It's not quite dark enough. Gray 30. That's pretty close. Let's do the same thing here. And then I guess I will add a token that does this last bit here. So something else we can do here is make this mess with the aspect ratio. All right, so now that all fits, and maybe the last thing, I think we need a little bit more space here. Yeah, that looks a little better. And there we have it. We have pretty much recreated this chart from the New York Times using R.